If life were fair, all wrestling matches would rock. There'd be a story and proper planning, and those involved would have every chance to make it a success. That's not what we get. In fact, sometimes those in charge send a match to the ring knowing it's going to die on its ass. Usually a matter of circumstance, but still, it's like murder via grappling, and it's not fun. These nuggets do last long in the memory as they're debated over and over again, so I guess that's something, but you have to feel for those involved. Forced to do someone's bidding, they likely know is pretty silly. I'm Simon from What Culture. Please subscribe, ignore my sore voice, and this is 10 wrestling matches that were sent out to die. Number 10, Bray Wyatt versus Seth Rollins. Happening at Hell in a Cell 2019, WWE seemed to go into this with no plan. The only reasonable reason to make this match was because management had seen the swell in popularity for The Fiend and thought it best to capitalize on that with a title win. Sounded like a little soon on paper, but whatever, at least he was gonna get a proper push. That's not what this was. Instead, it was WWE backing themselves into a corner. Apparently having no other plans for Seth Rollins and his belt, they just announced the two would be clashing in the cell and then threw together a fight, which was only ever going to piss people off. The main reason was the finish. Despite being in a giant cage with no rules, we got some weird DQ but not a DQ ending, where the referee decided Rollins had gone too far when he rested a ladder and a toolbox on Wyatt's face and then hit him with a hammer. Never forget that is a storyline reason now how Hell in a Cell matches can end. It made Seth an instant target as fans took their brunt out on him, and while this mistake was amended a few weeks later at Crown Jewel, didn't help the Fiend all that much. It ruined his momentum. The live crowd crapped all over this by the time it ended with chants of AEW and restart the match, and this whole ordeal is best forgotten. Still hurts. Number 9, Jazz versus Trish Stratus versus Lita. Going all the way back to WrestleMania 18, these three women never stood a chance, even though the event was in Canada, where Trish is considered somewhat of a hero. It's not like it was bad either. They all knew what they were doing, but it was their placement on the card that was the issue. It followed that match between Hulk Hogan and The Rock. I mean, what else were the crowd gonna do but go deathly silent and try and catch their breath? That is exactly what happened too, and any chance they may pick up was quickly squashed when the audience remembered they still had a main event to come between Chris Jericho and Triple H. As we know, that one kinda bombed too for the same reason, but this triple threat was just obliterated. All in all, Mania 18 just suffered because of its match order, and a lot of people were dragged down in the ashes. Trish, Lita, and Jazz just got the worst of it. Number 8, Baron Corbin versus Kurt Angle. Fun fact for you, Kurt Angle's first match was against Shawn Stasiak, aka Meat, and his last was against Baron Corbin at WrestleMania 35. Problem with the latter is it's not what most fans wanted, so when it went down, everybody was super nonplussed. What really got under people's skin was the fact this wasn't a goodbye to Kurt so much as it was another way to try and get Corbin over. I mean, that's exactly how it should be in wrestling, but not when it's not what the fans want. Then you are just angering them. Even Angle came out afterwards and said this isn't the match he would have chosen, which throws it down the well even more. I mean, who exactly was this for? It also suffered from match placement as it popped up between Triple H versus Batista and Finn Balor versus Bobby Lashley, and definitely didn't feel like a goodbye party for one of the best ever. Ah well. Number 7, Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar. What do you do when two guys want to leave the WWE before a mega money match at WrestleMania 20 and all the fans know it? The answer is whatever Goldberg versus Lesnar was, and to this day, it ain't great. Who knows what would have happened had Stone Cold Steve Austin not been the special guest referee, because my word, the crowd were ready to eat this one alive. They hated Brock for taking all the success he'd been giving and throwing it down the toilet, and because they knew Bill was off too, he didn't get any respect either. Rumor is even Shane McMahon was in the crowd booing the hell out of them. This was a farce. You could see it affected both guys as well, and in many ways could be one of the reasons we have the Brock Lesnar we do now. Why give so much back when you got treated like this after deciding to quit for health reasons? He's had a chip on his shoulder ever since. WWE was committed to this, so there was no way they could have just pulled it, but the finish was changed. Vince McMahon was clearly more upset that Lesnar, his new chosen one, was leaving, so he had to lose. Kinda worked out years later with that Brock Goldberg program, but still, go and watch this now. It ain't easy. Number 6, Heath Slater versus Kurt Hawkins. I don't even remember this match happening, to be honest, but it did so at the ridiculously named Great Balls of Fire pay-per-view in 2017. It also made no sense. As well as only going about 2 minutes, WWE used this match to show the fallout of Roman Reigns versus Braun Strowman, who had been involved in an ambulance match earlier on. The real insult was when the entire feed switched to this, meaning Hawkins and Slater were essentially wrestling for nobody. TV viewers couldn't see it, the live crowd was more interested in what was going down on the big screen. It It was almost as if it was invisible. Why WWE just didn't run the angle without any other distractions we will never know, but when Slater won, no one knew because it wasn't shown. This is so weird on so many levels. Number 5, Ronda Rousey versus Ruby Riott. It was admirable in one way that it seemed like Ronda Rousey wanted to work at least one match with every woman on the roster. She must have known she was only planning to do a year, so wanted to tick every box. That's why there was some hope when she faced Ruby Riott at the Elimination Chamber in 2019. Or so I thought. The real problem was at this stage it was clear that Rousey was going to headline WrestleMania against Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair. Anything that came before that was just going to be something to fill time, and that's exactly what this turned out to be. In less than 2 minutes, Riott had been destroyed by Rousey, and on the following Raw, WWE brushed past this as quick as they could. I guess I get it on one hand, you want Ronda to be as strong as possible, but couldn't we have at least gone, 5 minutes here? That would have been better or served a purpose. Shouldn't have been a big surprise, really. The Riot Squad in general had been used as an afterthought, and it was no different here. I don't think this made anybody's match of the year lists. Number 4, Undertaker versus Undertaker. Right, I've said this before and I'll say it again. When this occurred at SummerSlam 1994, I loved it. I was basically still a fetus, but seeing two versions of the dead man go face to face made no sense to me, because how was this real? Who was this other man? And why was Leslie Nielsen on the hunt for clues throughout this whole angle? Watch it now with an adult head on your shoulders, and yeah, there are some issues. One version is clear shorter than the other, and well, it's just obvious as to who the genuine article is. It was also meant to go far longer than the 9 minutes it did, but it had its time cut after Bret vs. Owen Hart had sailed past 30 minutes. Taker wasn't happy with that, but I think it was for the best. It was just too slow to really get the fans going, a fact that was hampered because the brother versus brother encounter went around about 677 miles per hour. Really, WWE should have switched these around, and the crowd agreed. Still, in what other world can you see two dead people fighting? Exactly. Number 3, DDP versus Goldberg. If you don't remember WCW, all you need to know is that at one stage, even when they were doing everything right, they always seemed to have something go horrifically wrong. A great look into this is everything that happened at Halloween Havoc 1998. Deciding they'd like a longer event, World Championship Wrestling extended the running length and yet didn't tell their pay-per-view providers. That meant on the night of the show they assumed it was business as usual. It was not, and as Goldberg battled DDP for the world title, loads of people who had dropped serious cash to watch this were left with black screens. The broadcast had gone off air. As such, WCW had sent this match out to die because the backlash was understandably fierce. Refunds were demanded, and as a make good, WCW aired the whole match on Nitro, which annoyed even more people because it saw fans who hadn't paid for the pay-per-view get the biggest draw on it for free. It was an absolute farce and one of those facepalm moments. Shame too, as this is actually pretty good. If you haven't seen it, change that right now. You'll see a side of Goldberg you're not expecting. Number 2, Jeff Hardy versus Sting. I will never understand why anybody at TNA let this happen. I get it must have been a hard situation to manage, but seeing Jeff Hardy stumble his way to face Sting at Victory Road 2011 is horrible. Clearly under the influence of something, Hardy shouldn't have even been in the arena, let alone in the ring, and no one knew this more than Sting. Seeing what the deal was, he had to take control of the situation, which was essentially manhandling Jeff before forcibly beating him in about 90 seconds. Even then, the look on Hardy's face made it clear he had no idea what was going on, whereas Sting was seething as anybody would have been. I'm sure no one is proud of it, and it isn't even worth watching. It's too painful, and just the wrong decision all around. Number 1, Buff Bagwell versus Booker T. The 2nd of July 2001, the day WCW died for a second time. Despite having plans to keep the brand alive and try to run 2 different shows, Vince McMahon cancelled all of that after Buff Bagwell and Booker T got in a ring on an episode of Raw and got destroyed by the live crowd. It was tough to see. If you listen to Bagwell, he will tell you this was intentional by McMahon, but that makes little sense. WWE had serious intentions to have WCW on Mondays and its own show on Thursdays. Money had been invested. The only reason it changed is because of this awful reaction. When you think about it, it's not that surprising either. WWE fans have been told for years that WCW was the enemy, so when they were on their turf, well, it was murder. Those involved didn't help themselves by ensuring Stone Cold Steve Austin and Kurt Angle were involved, 2 stars who were always going to be received better by the audience, and all of this was just a massive bust. It was the beginning of the end for the invasion angle, and here I am 20 years later, and I still cannot believe it. It was like all our dreams had arrived, but then they were sent out to die. that was a little bit much. Know of any other wrestling matches that were sent out to die? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Then why not head over to whatculture.com and read yourself more articles like this. Follow What Culture on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. My name is Simon from What Culture. I have a very sore voice because when I wrestle I scream like an idiot. I'll talk to you soon.